One of the issues we like to play around with is the incredible work needed for foster kids and the movement that is happening in these last couple of sessions. We actually have bipartisan movement in this day and age trying to help kids in foster care. Representative Monica Duran, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to make sure I've got this right. Ashley Chase from the Colorado Office of Child Representation. How did I do?
Child representative, yes.
All right, very good. All right, your job is to oversee the lawyers who take care of foster kids.
The ones who represent their best interests in court, yes.
Okay. And you've been pushing a couple of different bills, including a sibling bill of rights. First of all, why do you care about foster kids? I don't know how to tell you this, Representative. They don't vote.
But they will. But they will vote. And I care, basically I care because they're kind of a forgotten group of kids who really want to have access to everything that we all had access to, right? We could hardly wait to drive or get a permit when we were 15. And being able to give them the access to that, to have as much of a normal teenagehood like we had is so important, and that's why I care. It's just so important for them to have that.
I didn't realize until the bill popped up last year that foster kids had such a hard time getting a driver's license at 16, which means while their peers are out enjoying life, they can't. While their peers are out having a part-time job, they can't. What happened last year on the driver's license?
Last year, the Transportation Committee ran a bill that reduced some of the barriers for foster youth to get driver's licenses, but they knew at the time that it wasn't going to completely clear the path for these youth, because as you said, not only is it an important rite of passage, but these are youth that don't have a lot of support and have to become independent, which is very hard to do in Colorado without the ability to drive and get a job, as you mentioned. So they passed a bill to reduce some of those barriers by allowing youth to get their own insurance and allow them to get their own driver's license without some of the hoops that previously existed.
It's one of those things you wouldn't even think of because you just get your driver's license and your parents have to pay the insurance, but you don't care, they're there. Foster parents don't necessarily have that ability to do that. And you also need to get parental permission a lot of the times, and foster parents often don't want to do that, and the real parents are out of their lives. So it was an issue that I didn't even know existed. Now you're going to take that step one further this coming session. What are you going to do?
Correct. We have a bill that's ready to go. It came out of our Transportation Interim Committee, and then it came out of our Legislative Council Committee. So I've got the bill ready to present beginning when the session starts, and we'll work through it through the committees.
And this bill just makes foster kids illegal, so we don't have to worry about any of these problems?
Exactly. How did you know?
Yeah.
Now everybody knows. No, what this bill is going to do is it creates a grant program so that foster youth from the age of 15 to 18 will be able to take driver's education. So this will allow them to sign up, take driver's education, but also I think another thing was the importance of, with foster youth, it's really kind of hard to get a hold of the birth certificate, anything to verify their identity. So this bill will also make it easier for them with a court order. They can use a court order in order to get the paperwork that they need to be able to take driver's education. So that's another barrier that we're removing.
Yeah, you think about it, somebody had to teach you how to drive. And why don't the foster parents just teach them how to drive?
I think some foster parents would love to be able to. However, they're stretched pretty thin. And not every youth, unfortunately, is in a foster home where foster parents are willing. I think a lot of times both the foster care system and the county system worry about liability. We know teenagers don't always make the best choices behind the wheel or otherwise. So liability is a big concern. And that's one of the things that this bill is going to tackle as well, is just to clarify that the county's not going to hold that liability, because that's a large barrier put in their way. Even sometimes when you have a foster parent willing to do that work, sometimes the courts and the county can make it onerous and difficult for the youth to do.
I'm pretty sure there's a law that says a teenager has to get into an accident within the first 6 months. Lord knows I did. Lord knows my daughter did. I think so. So this bill protects the foster parents if that happens. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Talk to me just a little bit about the foster care system, because, like you said, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and if you haven't grown up in it or seen it, you don't know about it. Tell me about your dad.
You know, my dad, it wasn't something that he really talked about when we were kids. We just knew that he had been in foster care in and out of a few different homes as a kid. But I think as I got older and my interest more in, you know, are most vulnerable, and just society in itself, and just kind of talking and asking him. It was hard. It was really hard, but back in that day, you didn't talk about the difficulty, right? You didn't talk about having to adjust and adapt. So that kind of always stayed with me. And I think just some of the things I've gone through in life, I'm just always more in tune, or try to be in tune to the needs out there, and just trying to make sure that, you know, our kids in foster youth, they're kids. They're kids, number one, right? And they've already been separated from their families, or who knows what they've gone through and what they've had to deal with, that we need to make it as easy as possible and as normal as possible for them through different stages of their life.
I didn't realize until I interviewed someone from the system that a foster kid goes through several sets of foster parents, it seems. Is there an average? Is there how many times is there, I hate to use the term turnover, but
Yeah.
you know, these kids don't have a stable life. How often are they switched around, and why?
Many of them don't have a stable life. Some are lucky enough to stay in one home, and that's always the ideal, but you're right, it frequently doesn't work that way. A lot of time foster parents aren't getting the right supports they need, and these youth, frankly, are extremely traumatized, and sometimes those behaviors come out and can be difficult to deal with. There is no average amount. You know, many times we do a great job, and we are able to keep them in the same foster home for the entirety of their case. Sometimes they move 3-4 times. When we're talking about teenagers, like we are in this bill, that tends to be a population that's a little more difficult for people to deal with. I think foster youth are not. And unfortunately, we see a lot more turnover in those
I don't want to
children.
foster my own teenagers. What is the biggest challenge that both of you see in this world? I mean, I understand it seems like we're salami slicing away to solutions, including the other driving. But what is the largest issue around foster kids? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you do?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult question, in the sense of you're going through so much already, right? Emotionally and mentally, and wanting to feel like you belong somewhere, and you belong to someone. And I think if I could wave that magic wand, letting them know that, you know, you are special, you are important, and you are valued, and giving them the stability that they need.
You took a step that way with the sibling bill. Explain what the need was.
The need there was because many foster children are separated, right? They go into different foster care homes, and they're losing contact with each other.
So not only did they lose their parents,
they lose everything that they are familiar with, whether it was good or bad, and then they're losing each other. So it's so important that they're able to connect with their sibling, whether it's by phone, whether it's FaceTime, writing, in any way, to be connected to someone you feel belong with.
What did your bill do? Which is now law. What did it do?
It is law, so now it requires that they have to be able to stay connected with each other. Our siblings, so they can, you know, whether it's by phone, like I said, or FaceTime, or however that is, that it's required that they stay connected.
It's hard for me to believe that was actually an issue.
Yes.
That siblings couldn't communicate with each other if they were being fostered in different places.
Well, it's tough because you could be, you know, you could be 2 states apart, correct? I mean, you're not always, you know, right next door or in the same town. And other things get in the way, wouldn't you say?
Certainly. I think the law, we had a lot of laws in place already that had a preference for siblings to be placed together, so it is something that we try to do. But when they're not placed together, it becomes very difficult to navigate. These youth often have a variety of different things. They have to attend visits with parents, therapy and things of that nature. So sometimes fitting in that sibling visit or communication with the siblings
If you're living with
was
extra
the lowest
pounds you
priority.
think you'll
and I
never
think that
lose.
the last year really helps prioritize the importance of that relationship and is going to really help in the sibling connection area.
Congratulations to both of you for getting this stuff done. I mean, it's amazing anything gets done down at the Capitol. People want to get more information about foster care, and where do they go? What's a good resource?
You know, there's a variety of resources about foster care in Colorado. I think the State Department of Human Services is a good place to start, and then there are several agencies that run excellent foster care programs, child placement agencies, and there's a wide variety in Colorado.
And you're always looking for foster parents, right?
That's right. It's a huge need in our state, and I think the biggest difference you can make for a youth is to provide a high-quality adult connection like a foster parent.
Thank you. Thank you. I got to run.
Thank you
Listen
so
for
much.
me on KHOW Radio. Read me at the Denver Post. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute at thinkfreedom.org, and we'll see you next week.